Well, from consumer to contributor in our culture of comfort. Philemon's 1:11 says, "Formerly he was useless to you, but now he has become useful both to you and to me." So, welcome back to the Onesimus effect. This week, we've been walking through the remarkable transformation of Onesimus. We've talked about identity, we've talked about running, we've talked about transformation, and we've talked about reconciliation. And today we arrive at something every follower of Christ eventually discovers, that God did not save you merely to sit, He saved you to serve. And that may sound simple, but it challenges one of the strongest currents in modern culture, because we live in a consumer driven world and everything is built around convenience, comfort, customization, personal preferences, instant satisfaction. And we choose what we watch, what we listen to, what we buy and what we follow and what we subscribe to. And slowly, without realizing it, the consumer's mindset can begin shaping our spiritual lives. We can start approaching church the way we approach streaming services, asking, what am I going to get out of this? Does this meet my needs? Does this fit my preferences? Am I being fed? Those questions aren't necessarily wrong, but they are incomplete because the gospel eventually shifts the question from what can I receive to how can I contribute. And Onesimus is a perfect example of this shift. One of the most fascinating details in Paul's letters is the play on Onesimus's name. The name Onesimus literally means useful. Yet at the same point in his life, he had become anything but useful to Philemon. He had run away, he had broken trust, and he abandoned his responsibilities. From a worldly perspective, he looked like a failure, a liability, someone whose story had gone off course. But yet, Paul writes, formerly he was useless to you, but now he has become useful both to you and to me. Notice something really important. Paul isn't simply talking about productivity, he's talking about purpose. The gospel had transformed Onesimus from someone consumed with escape into someone committed to service. The same man who once ran away from responsibility now becomes valuable in the kingdom, in God's kingdom. That is that is the power of redemption. God doesn't just forgive people, he gives them purpose. And we can remember seasons in our own lives when we're deeply frustrated with our spiritual lives. You know, we could be attending church and listening to sermons, participating in studies, reading scripture, yet something felt missing. We couldn't quite identify it. And we assumed that we needed another book, another conference, another teaching series, or another spiritual breakthrough. But over time, God gently reveals something, that our spiritual life has become almost entirely about receiving, and we are consuming constantly, learning constantly, rather than information constantly, but contributing very little. Then an opportunity can arise to serve in a way that we feel comfortable and inconvenient. It feels uncomfortable, unnoticed, and there are no stage, no recognition, no applause, no obvious reward, just a need. And as we step into this opportunity, unexpected happens. We can experience a deeper sense of purpose than we have felt for a long time, because spiritual maturity isn't measured only by what we know, it's measured by what we give away. And the Christian life was never designed to be a reservoir. It was designed to be a river. See, grace flows into us so that we can flow through us. And many believers discover their greatest growth not when they consume more, but when they begin serving others. So, one of the definitions and characteristics of a modern society is comfort. We become incredibly skilled at eliminating inconvenience. Food arrives at our doors, entertainment is available instantly, and communication happens in seconds. Technology continues making life easier, and none of that is inherently bad. But comfort becomes dangerous when it becomes our highest value, because growth rarely happens in comfort zones. So think about it. Muscles grow through resistance, character grows through challenges, and faith grows through trust. Leadership grows through responsibility, and discipleship grows through obedience. And purpose often grows through service. Yet, comfort constantly whispers, stay where it's easy, don't risk failure, don't inconvenience yourself, or protect your time, protect your energy, and protect your preferences. The gospel whispers something different. Take up your cross, follow me, serve one another, love sacrificially. The path of Christ has never been the path of comfort. It has always been the path of purpose, and purpose often requires sacrifice. One of the greatest misunderstandings in Christianity is the belief that ministry belongs only to pastors, missionaries, or church leaders. Scripture paints a very different picture. Every believer has a role, every believer has a gifts, and every believer has influence, and every believer has a calling. The church was never meant to function through a handful of people doing ministry while everyone else watches. The church flourishes when every member contributes. Paul describes the church as a body. A body works because every part participates. The eye sees, the ear hears, the hands serve, the feet move. No part is insignificant and no role is unimportant. And the same is true of you. You may not preach, you may not lead a large ministry, and you may never stand on the stage, but you can encourage, you can pray, and you can mentor, and you can serve, and you can give. You can listen, you can help, and you can love. And often the most powerful kingdom work happens in the ordinary acts of faithfulness. The world celebrates visibility. God often celebrates faithfulness. Our culture spends enormous energies chasing success. Things like titles, influence, recognition, and status, and achievement. And again, none of these things are inherently wrong. The danger comes when success becomes a goal rather than significance. Success asks, how far can I climb? Significance asks, how many people can I help? Success focuses on personal achievement, while significance focuses on kingdom impact. Onesimus probably never became famous. We don't read about him in building a platform. We don't read about him becoming wealthy, but we do know he became useful. And in God's economy, usefulness matters far more than visibility, because heaven measures differently than earth, and the kingdom values faithfulness over fame, service over status, character over charisma, and purpose over popularity. So take some time today and reflect on these questions. Have you been approaching your spiritual life primarily as a consumer or a contributor? And what gifts has God placed in your life? Where might God be inviting you to serve others? What fears are or excuses have kept you from stepping into the greater purpose? And what would change if you viewed every day as an opportunity to contribute rather than to consume? So today's challenge is practical. Find one way to serve someone this week, not for recognition, not for applause, and not for credit, simply because Christ has served you. And maybe it's encouraging someone, helping a neighbor, or volunteering, mentoring, praying, giving, or listening. Whatever it is, take one intentional step. And as you do, pay attention to what God begins teaching you about purpose. The Onesimus effect reminds us that redemption always leads somewhere. God does not simply rescue people from their past, He commissions them into His future. He takes the runaway and gives him responsibility. He takes the broken and gives them purpose. And He takes the ordinary and uses them as in the extraordinary kingdom work. Tomorrow, we're going to explore another life changing truth, the power of spiritual mentorship. Because behind every transformed Onesimus, there was a Paul who was investing in him. And perhaps one of the greatest needs in our culture today is not more information, it's deeper discipleship. Until then, remember, you are not saved merely to consume, you were saved to contribute. You were not called merely to receive, you were called to serve. And when grace begins following you through your life, the Onesimus effect continues. So thank you for joining me for day 5 of the Onesimus Effect podcast. And I shall see you tomorrow.